Welcome along then to a bonus match build-up show, and this episode is sponsored by OneFootball. Do check out their excellent free app to keep up to date with the latest transfer news, scores and stats all in one place. To download the OneFootball app, click the link in the description below the show. So here we are then, again, the FA Cup third round, a replay at St Mary's this Wednesday night with Derby County. And so once again, I've had hardly any time to enjoy my weekend and bask, in fact, in that wonderful victory at Leicester City on Saturday night. So the turnaround is rapid for me and for Hasenhuttl this week, but we have managed to put together a bonus show for you this week. And on this week's FA Cup preview, I catch up with the Archers Road End blog to evaluate the sensation of a Shane Long goal and the adverse effect that Hasenhuttl is having at Saints at the moment. And once again, I do chat to the host of the Derby County podcast, the Steve Bloomer's Washing, to find out if Frank Lampard's men are going for glory in the FA Cup.
I think that whilst Ralph has come in and improved stuff, I think that where we're adjusting to his new system, there are going to be some real kind of Jekyll and Hyde displays. I think that Derby was hopefully the last of them.
Yeah, I'd always want to progress in as many competitions as possible. I think we've got a squad to cope with a cup run. I think we can give it a good go. And don't get me wrong, I don't buy into this. Just lose and concentrate on the league. I'm definitely up for getting as far as we can.
And of course, as usual now, this episode is available to download in the card above my head if you're watching on YouTube, or available on most audio platforms in the links below the show. Do let us know if you're heading to St Mary's this Wednesday night with these subsidised tickets around a tenner or a pie, a pint, and a ticket for $17.50, all for the BBC cameras as well. And do feel free to leave a comment below to join the conversation with your predictions. So let's kick off our first half of our big match build-up show as Saints host Derby City in the FA Cup third round replay. So welcome along then to our first half of our bonus match build-up show this week as Derby visit St Mary's, and here on the call to help us preview the game this Wednesday night for the BBC cameras as Ben from the Archers Road blog. Really good to see you again, mate.
Good to see you too, mate. Nice to be on again.
I think it's best to say we're still reeling from that victory on Saturday, a 2-1 victory away from Claude Puel's Leicester City, put huge pressure on his shoulders as well. A terrific victory, disciplined, organised, for considering the team that we had available to us.
Oh, definitely. I was fearing the worst when I was travelling up for this game. It was a bare-bones squad. You look at the amount of academy players we named on the bench. It's a source of pride, but also a sense of worry, because you worry about these some of these boys, being thrown in what was an incredibly important game. But that was the game where you look for the senior pros to step up, and they did. Especially in the first half, I thought that Armstrong, Long, and Redmond were absolutely exceptional, along with Bednarek and Vestergaard, who seems to be improving all the time. So yeah, it was a good performance.
It's incredible to see the difference, the communication, the organisation with our defence at the moment. The rumours suggest that Mark Hughes didn't even apply defensive training, but Vestergaard, Stevens as well, whom Hasenhuttl has put a lot of faith in.
I agree with that. I think that Jack Stevens is very confident on the ball. I do think he's one of those defenders who's got a mistake in him, but I think that good coaching can coach mistakes out of players. And I think that a good example of that is Vestergaard. A lot of people were giving Vestergaard a lot of stick at the start of the season, but you can really look at it and you can see that it was down to a lack of defensive training, which isn't as we know from Hughes teams, isn't exactly unusual. He has come on now, and all of a sudden now he's got a structure. Now he knows he's being told what to do, where to be, what's expected of him during a game. Now they're being, when you're physically fitter, you're mentally sharper as well. all of these things, they're just improving in leaps and bounds, and we saw a really solid defensive display yesterday. Vestergaard is improving with every game, and Bednarek was just exceptional yesterday. He was absolutely brilliant. It was like a new signing, having him in there, and he's really developing.
Well, the BBC actually gave Bednarek the man of the match, but there's so many players that we could have given it to. We could have given it to Vestergaard, could have given it to Stevens. Shane Long, of course, scoring his first goal since April. And here's the statistic that's doing the round. Shane Long has scored the last 4 goals that he scored has scored under 4 different managers. But how good did that feel?
Oh, it felt great, and I'm really happy for him because he's a bit of he's kind of our St. Jude. He's a patron saint of lost causes. Ball goes up the pitch, and he's there. He's chasing it. He's like a flea in the ear of the defenders. And yesterday, he gave Nempalis Mendy, I think it was, an absolute torrid time. And he won that penalty, drew that penalty, he did it really well. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he pressured him into a mistake again. He pressured Mendy into 2 mistakes. So really, he scored 2, but he really made, scored 1, sorry, but he really made both of those goals with his attitude and application. I know he gets stick for not scoring, but I still think that as a player, he offers more to the side than Gabbiadini, who's recently departed, just because he makes defenders he pressures defenders into making mistakes. Did it at Palace earlier this season for Danny Ings' opening goal. Drew one of the defenders away with a good run, injured himself in the process. But that's what he does. He terrorises defenders.
It suggested that he may even, continue his position on Wednesday night against Derby at home. We'll get to injury, suspension in just a moment as well. But another name to the suspension list, missing list, Jan Valery with 2 yellow cards yesterday. Needless, really, but it comes with naivety and immaturity, really.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with that. I think that he will learn a lot from that. Both of the tackles were. Both of them were unnecessary in terms of, timing, in terms of how he was. And the second one, to be perfectly honest, the Leicester player did him really. He knew exactly. The Leicester player went down as soon as Valery's hands were up. The guy was down, and that's really, unfortunately, I have to say that's clever from that player, because he knew that Valery was, on that tightrope, and as soon as his hands went up, you can't justify that. He went down and he was off. He will learn from that, and I think that we have a manager now who will explain to him and set the marker with him, not read the riot act with him, because it's silly. And I think as a professional, he'll learn more than that from that himself, and I think that no one will probably be as critical of that mistake as the lad himself.
It was quite feisty, actually, the duel between him and Chilwell as well. But it's a victory to savour, despite Jamie Vardy's best efforts to try and dive and try to con the referee. If you look at the replay, he tries to drag his foot and gets stuck in the mud, and Vestergaard and Stevens are having none of it. And he should have been given a yellow card. Yeah.
I think that the only thing that caught him, that prevented him from getting a booking, was it wasn't a clear. I mean, he's a good liar. In other words, it looked like something where, with the pace of the game, you'd go, actually. But when you look at it and when it's slowed down, you see it's completely unacceptable. I know a lot of people were saying that Valery went down very easily in the box in the first half of the game. That's true. I think he did. But that was one of those situations where the player's arm, the player went in on a tackle with Vardy. I didn't see the benefit of him trying to do that, because if he would have tried to play the ball, he could have got past. If he would have tried to take a more effective touch, rather than focusing on trying to win a penalty, he could have been in and he could have scored. I mean, we know what a frustrating striker he is to play against. I thought it was terrible, and I think that he needs to have a look at himself, but he won't because that's how he plays, isn't it?
Yeah, he's got no morals from our perspective anyway. So we'll never forgive him for when he injured Van Dijk and we could have gone to win the League Cup final, but. Here we are, though, a replay with Derby on Wednesday night. The first game, we caught up just after the match, actually, and it's fair to say the game was typically Saints throwing away a 2-goal lead, and Derby have previous for comebacks.
It was such a typical Southampton performance. I think that whilst Ralph has come in and improved stuff, I think that where we're adjusting to his new system, there are going to be some real kind of Jekyll and Hyde displays. I think that Derby was hopefully the last of them, but it was one of those games again where Derby looked like, but at 45 minutes, if that was a boxing match, they would have thrown in a towel because Derby were absolutely provided nothing in that first half. And then when Nathan Redmond's absolutely beautiful second goal went in, you was like, yeah, that's it. No, job done. Let's hold on to it. Well, that's what you think when it's a normal team. But it's Southampton, and as usual, they get a goal back, and then straight away, as per earlier on in the season, we just collapsed, and in the end lucky to get a draw. But it's going to be a good fun. It's going to be a good fun replay. Looking forward to that. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, they could have easily won it with the last kick of the game in the first game, I suppose. But Wednesday, we're down to the bare bones. As mentioned, we've got more suspensions. We've still got a few players away with injury. I think it's too early for Ings and Bertrand to come back. Austin, Højbjerg and Valerie on the suspension list. Lamina missing at the weekend. So a lot of injuries and suspensions too. But a lot of youngsters, like you said, on the bench at Leicester. I think we might see a couple of them once again. Slattery might be in for a return to the first team. And I think we might see rotation as best as we can to keep the team fresh. And we could say that, we might see almost the exact team that we saw bar Austin. We might see the same team that we saw at Derby.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think that we'll have a couple of senior players in there. I think that Redmond needs the games at the moment. I think that when you're in form, I think that Redders and Shane, they're in form at the moment and they won't want to be on the bench. And I think that Hasenhuttl will know that. Some players kind of respond well to rotation. Some players need that sort of rest. But I think that players like that, especially, Shane said after the game, he was still getting back to full fitness after his injury, his pre-Christmas injury. Something that we all tend to forget, because when players kind of come back into the team and they're fully fit, you think, right, okay, straight away, why aren't you performing? And you can kind of see maybe at Derby last week he was rusty, but this week he was a lot better. So I think we'll see pretty much the same lineup. I think we may see Gallagher. I don't think it's worth risking too many of the first team, too many of the first team players. I think that, we've got ourselves into a good position in the league, but we still needs to be our priority. Premier League football needs to be priority next season. Yeah, I think we'll see a few changes, but once again, I wouldn't be surprised if he kept the same defensive lineup, because I think that, Ralph seems to like those three in the middle. And I think he'll want them to build a bit of a relationship there. So I think we'll see that. I think the main changes to see is midfield.
He's expected to see Gunn back in the sticks as well. But who doesn't love an FA Cup run, and Accrington awaits?
Yeah, I mean, that's the fun thing about it, isn't it? I mean, the FA Cup, when I was travelling up to the game last weekend, I was thinking this is better than Christmas for me. The third round of the FA Cup is the best weekend of the year, because it's just, there's no pressure. It's not league football, but it's this magical tournament, and obviously where we won it in 1976, it's something that brings back fond memories to Saints fans. Every year you kind of think, what if? If we beat Derby, we go to Accrington. It'll be great. You know, it'd be nice to have a little cup run because it gives everybody a lift as well. Gives everybody a nice distraction for the league. Importantly, I think it will give some of the younger players a chance to, rightly so. I don't think Ralph will, prioritise the cup over the league because we can't afford to. But I think he'll certainly use it to experiment. But, he has one thing we've seen is that he has high expectations of every single player in the squad. And I like that. I think that his attitude is, you're a professional footballer. You play to these professional standards. You need to play to a Premier League standard. I will do all I can to help you to get there, but you have to do it. And I think the players have responded really well to that.
All right. So just before we sign off, give us a quick score prediction and tell everybody where we can find you.
Yeah, I think we'll beat Derby 2-1 on Wednesday. It'll be a tight game, but I think we'll nick it. If you want to find me, I'm Archers Road End on Twitter, and the archersroadend.wordpress.com is my blog. Just type it into the search bar and you'll find it. All right.
Great stuff as the sirens are going off as well. But really good to speak to you again. And we'll speak again soon, mate.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Freddie. Take it easy.
Brilliant stuff there from Ben. Do make sure you give him a little follow over on Twitter, and do make sure you check out his excellent Archers Road End blog to join in the conversation, and do let us know your predictions for Wednesday night. But now it's time to move to our opposition, and this is probably the closest you're going to get for Southampton spying on an opponent. And this time as I chat to the Derby County podcast, Steve Bloomer's Washing. So welcome along then to our second half of our FA Cup replay bonus preview show. Once again, we've got Chris, the host of the Steve Bloomer's Washing podcast. Really good to see you again. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are things?
Not too bad. I'm feeling good, feeling confident after the weekend. Probably a little worse for wear after Saturday night.
Yeah, well, I think you're more confident than me. We had a pretty bad result at the weekend, but that's all goes out the window in the Cup, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The FA Cup is anyone's guess, I suppose. But let's... Before we get to your result on Friday night, let's talk about the 2-2 draw up at the at Pride Park, or the iPro. What do you call it now?
So it was the iPro for a bit, but it's now back to Pride Park again. So yeah, you can forget all mentions of Pro and energy drinks in general. It's just back to good old fashioned Pride Park.
All right. Well, that distinguishes the title of the stadium. But Derby 2, Saints 2, and an excellent comeback from Derby in the first leg, if you like. Two goals from Saints, both sort of quite early goals. Two excellent goals from Nathan Redmond. And what do you pin down the performance, the comeback a few weeks ago? Yeah,
well, it's something we've done quite a few times this season. We've won a lot of points from losing positions. We've conceded the first goal far too many times this season, and when Saints went ahead in the first 5 minutes, it looked like it was going to be same old story, really. I think the first half, there wasn't a massive amount of quality on show, really. I think it had a bit of a feel of a sort of a friendly to it almost, or I don't know if that was because of sort of the crowd or general disinterest in the Cup generally. But at 2-0 down, we didn't really lay a glove on Southampton, really. We didn't look in the game at all. Barely had a shot on goal. But once we do get that goal back, we do look like we can get something from games. And it was all credit to whatever Lampard said at half time, because it was a terrific turnaround, scored 2 great goals. And I know Southampton had a few chances in the second half themselves, but then Derby could have won it with pretty much the very last kick of the game. So very much a second half transformation. I think you have to put it down to the to Lampard's team talk. I think he changed the formation slightly at half time, I believe. Sort of put Nugent up top with Marriott in a 2, and I think they caused a few more problems than Marriott was on his own. And if you chuck in a bit of Southampton complacency as well, that's what ended up causing the result that happened, that 2-2 draw.
I think you've actually taken the words out of my mouth, really. The complacency, I think Saints sort of lied upon. And once, I suppose, once we can see the first goal, sort of our heads dropped. and as you say, Derby have previous in coming back from the game, and David Nugent, he got a bit of stick from our set of fans, of course, a former Blue from down the road, and yeah, David Nugent, I think he sort of changed the dynamic of the game, didn't he?
Yeah, he can still do that. I mean, he's 33 now. The legs aren't quite there as much as they used to be. Marriott's still very much first choice, and Nugent's pretty much never going to start for us, really. But you know what you're going to get from him. He still does run the channels pretty well. He does still put defenders under pressure. He does still make quite sort of clever runs occasionally, just not as fast and as often as he used to. And yeah, he sort of takes players away from our other attacking players, and that's what you want from him, really. And I think he is still seen as a good influence in the dressing room with the younger players. So yeah, he's still got a role to play, even if his best days are behind him.
And the 2 goals, I think it's fair to say they were crackers. To be fair, a little flick up from Lawrence, a huge player actually. The 2 laying on the first and then striking the second one from a fair distance, a little flick up, and Marriott volleys it, strikes it straight past, fires straight past Gunn, and an excellent strike from sort of 25, 30 yards. And there must be something in the water at Derby, because Harry Wilson scores so many long-range shots, and Tom Lawrence took up that sort of baton when we played you. Yeah,
well, I mean, we spoke before about Harry Wilson, and he missed that game, and he missed the defeat to Leeds last week. Yeah, the thing is with Lawrence is that he does frustrate a lot of us Derby fans. He can do things like he did against Saints. Like, he can chip in with those great long-range strikes, those little flicks. He is a match winner on his day, but he just does not do it often enough. Given he was sort of a marquee signing at the start of last season for around the 5 million mark, I think it was his 5th goal of the season against Southampton, but only his first assist. And I think a lot of fans have expected a bit more, but when he fancies it, he can drive forward through the middle. He'll drop the shoulder. He's got a great long shot on him. He takes a few pot shots, which sort of go way over the bar at the same time. And he is a bit wasteful in the wide positions and from set pieces sometimes, but he can change a game like that. It's just, he doesn't do it often enough. And as for Marriott, I mean, he's in double figures for the season now with that goal against Southampton. A really instinctive low volley, which we expect that from him now, really. Like, he is just a real natural goal scorer, although I wish he was a bit more natural when he took that chance a bit better right at the end there, where Nugent squared it to him as one-on-one. The goal was gaping, but he spooned it over the bar. That was a really disappointing moment to finish the tie.
It's undoubtedly those two are going to be the 2 key men on Wednesday night as well. But I suppose we better touch on the Friday night result, a 2-0 defeat away at Leeds, and marred by the Spygate saga. What do you make of all that? Leeds apparently employed a scout or somebody to stand over the edge of the training ground with some binoculars.
Yeah, it's disappointing. And it was just, it was the football story of last week, really, wasn't it? It just took a couple of really dramatic twists and turns. I mean, look, fundamentally, spy or no spy, we were miles away from Leeds on Friday. Leeds were faster, stronger, quicker, more cohesive, more disciplined. And I don't think they'd have benefited. I don't think you get that from spying on the opposition, really. You get that from being well drilled and being well coached. So that's the thing that I think angered a lot of Derby fans, that they didn't even really need to spy on us, really, because they were better than us anyway. So, but yeah, in terms of the actual incident, I mean, there were no arrests. Technically, no laws were broken. It is unprecedented, really. There isn't really any previous for this in the Football League rulebooks. I don't think the EFL or the FA really knew what to do. But sending a member of your team to the opposition to sort of peek through the bushes with binoculars and a pair of pliers and a change of clothes, it's underhand. It's unethical. It's a bit insulting, really. But I believe Leeds owner has since spoken to our owner, Mel Morris, and basically apologised for it. Lampard, in his post-match and pre-match interviews, was clearly quite angry about the whole situation. But I don't really expect it to be taken that much further. Maybe a touchline ban for Bielsa or something. Maybe a small fine, but any talk of points deductions would be sort of massively overblowing it, really. But yeah, again, it didn't take away from the fact that we just weren't good enough on Friday. Like we had basically no shots on target that I remember, and we were outplayed and outfought in every position, really.
Well, Bielsa actually admitted to the press that he takes full responsibility for the spygate, I suppose. But and Derby only made 3 changes from the Southampton game. Will it be very much the same this Wednesday? Because it was a fairly strong squad. I mean, on paper, we would have thought sort of Derby fielded quite a younger side against Saints, and eight of those players that played against Southampton played against Leeds on Friday.
Yeah, we've got a fairly deep squad in certain positions to choose from. I know that we talked about this in your previous video about how many changes Lampard might make, and I didn't think he'd make that many, but he ended up making 6, which was a few more than I was expecting. I think part of that's due to injury, part of it's due to lack of form, but I don't think Mount played, and there was a bit of chopping and changing against Leeds as well. Because we were getting caned so badly in the first half, he ended up putting Dwayne Holmes at right back, who's normally sort of an attacking midfielder, because Andre Wisdom was was in a real load of trouble down the right. So for the cup tie replay, I'd imagine he'll probably go back to the team that played in the first leg, I think. Although Wilson may come back in, I think hopefully he should have shaken off the knock that's kept him out the last couple of games. So I'd imagine it will still be. I said it was going to be Carson in goal, but he ended up playing Roos instead, our reserve goalkeeper. So I'd imagine Roos will play again. Then probably still Tamori and Keogh, and then perhaps Max Lowe, and probably Wisdom again, I'd have thought. And then midfield is a bit trickier, but you'd have thought it would probably be Evans again, who seems to be getting a run of games. Then maybe Holmes, Joseph Soon. I'd imagine Lawrence, who came back into the side against Southampton, he'll probably start again. And then probably Mario up front again. There's nothing wrong with playing him at the moment. So, yeah, a bit of chopping and changing, but I'd imagine we'll probably look to replicate the team that played in the first leg.
All right, well, there you go then. Some of the local press suggest that Harry Wilson's still going to be a doubt for Wednesday, but what do you think his approach is going to be? Would you take progression, and then obviously Accrington Stanley awaits the winner?
Yeah, it'd be great, wouldn't it? Good old-fashioned cup side, that one, isn't it? And it's been selected for TV as well. So, I'd always want to progress in as many competitions as possible. I think we've got a squad to cope with a cup run, and even with that, we've got options in January. We're a little bit hamstrung, financially. We can't afford to splash the cash in the same way that we did in pre-season. But loans were always an option with Frank's connections as well. So yeah, I think we can give it a good go. And yeah, well, I know we said in the first video that I predicted we'd draw the first game, get a replay, and then lose down on the South Coast. And I still think that'll probably be the case. But don't get me wrong, I don't buy into this. Just lose and concentrate on the league. I'm definitely up for getting as far as we can. All
right, well, there you have it then. Really good to speak to you again. Just remind our viewers, listeners, of your podcast.
Yeah, so Steve Bloomer's Washing. You can find us on Twitter at Steve Bloomer Pod, and if you search for us on SoundCloud, iTunes, and as of today, if you search for us on Spotify as well, I've just got it all on there as well, so you can find a podcast on any of those channels.
Excellent stuff. Keep up the good work, and hopefully we don't. Well, we might see you again next season, but all the best.
Cheers, Freddie. Thank you.
Huge thanks once again then to Chris, the host of the Steve Bloomer's Washing, the Derby County podcast. All the best on promotion, mate. Hopefully we do see you again next season. Derby was a terrific day out, and there were plenty of places for a perfect pint. Do make sure, of course, you give them a little follow for all of your Derby County needs. So they think they'll go for it, and they will want to go for it. But what do you guys think at home? Let us know your predictions for Wednesday night. Can we ride the wave of momentum building on that excellent victory at Leicester City from Saturday? And of course, a new ground to most. Accrington Stanley awaits in the next round. So thank you very much for watching along, listening along to this bonus episode. We'll catch up after the match for some fan interviews, and do look out for our Everton preview later on this week. Thanks again, and come on, you Saints.